Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, outsourced employee making a series of wrongdoings that leads to losing the job. Scholarly mainframe hijinks. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Outsourced employee making a series of wrongdoings that leads to losing the job. My company during the pandemic and summer vacation times outsourced a lot of tech support jobs. These externals usually screw up quite often, but they are not doing it by purpose, and these screw-ups aren't really catastrophic. Now, this time this wasn't a regular case of I had a poor intro education for the job so I didn't know any better. This is something that lead to a person losing the job. A regular day, a regular call came in. It was at first a regular case. The customer needed help finding the LAN socket the customer will connect the router to. Easily enough, I helped them find it, and the link popped up green on the router's one socket. Great. I thought, easy, clean, and another happy customer. Then the internet didn't work. The customer was redirected to a website to buy a connection. Now this was a city network I didn't have systems for, and I started looking through the installation details. This is where I started to notice something odd. I asked, you mentioned you had moved recently, is that correct? Yes, we just moved in, and we talked to you, referring to my company, about this about a week ago. I understand. Have you recently received a confirmation email for an order? No, I thought that was odd, usually you get those. Now I started understanding what has happened and went into the order system to look at the details. When the customer called on May 27th, they got a 12-month deal on the broadband connection, making them bound to us for 12 months. Then September 4th they called us to move the connection because they are bound to my company due to the deal. The external that took the call, and instead of just simply pressing one button to move the connection from one address to another, this external removed the old connection completely, then ordering a new connection. Now, this is wrong on so many levels I have to make a list to count them. 1. Ordering a new subscription on a regular move case customer. 2. Removing the old subscription manually by termination of the old terms to the binding deal from 27th of May. Like a regular termination, but with the debut of the remaining binding time. 3. Ordered the wrong deal to the new address for the customer. 4. Didn't correct the new binding time of the new subscription to match the old binding time, effectively increasing the binding time effect for the customer by about 4 months with the wrong deal. 5. Didn't remove the debuta of the remaining binding time from the old subscription, making the customer get an invoice of about $300. 6. Didn't remove the installation fee of about $30. 7. Removed the need for the customer to return the router which the customer hired from my company manually, but didn't remove the mailing of a router which comes as a standard to E&W customers. There is a button to remove it. 8. Didn't give the customer any information about the binding time, new price, installation date, installation invoice, new router, how to connect the router on the new address that has a LAN socket instead of a fiber converter. It took me about 1.5 hours to correct all this. So I got a bit salty because this was not a regular mistake. This was on purpose just to be able to click a new subscription sale. Plus all of this could be avoided by just doing a regular move that would take about 2 minutes to do, but no sale. I emailed the boss to this external, and gave the boss a brief and asked the boss to look at the case. 2 days passed and the boss thanked me for the information and told me actions had been taken accordingly to the case. I looked up this external's employee ID and saw that it was inactive since 26 hours ago. This means that the ID is no longer in use, and the external does no longer work for the company that we outsource to. This was a bit odd, because in my country it's rare and hard to be kicked out like that. It would take several offenses before actions like that would be taken. So I guess that this person had done similar things before. Well, have fun finding a new job. P.S. I very rarely report employees, but if something is blatantly obvious that the employee screw over the customer and break about every routine and company rule just for a sale, I will go out of my way to make that person regret it. Scholarly mainframe hijinks. All of this recent VAXery has me remembering fondly of my father teaching me Zork and Kingdom on the university mainframe. Sitting late at night in the main office, staring at an old amber monitor, completely absorbed in the fate of an ASCII hero, as my father toiled away over statistical models on the neighboring terminal. This is not my tale. It is a tribute to tales told to me by my father. My father, aged and very much retired, was a professor of political science back in the days when statistical analysis was mostly theoretical. Old enough to predate Blaylock's seminal publishing on the topic. Likewise, mainframes back then were the big iron joy that I know several of you suspendered ancients toiled over hot registers on. I'm not saying he predated cardboard, but I'm fairly sure he was around to see the first punch card be smithied out of it. Dad was, and is, still, an empiricist. He gets very grumpy with the reverse. Real-world proof beats hypothetical wishery 99.9% of the time, error margin of less than 0.001%, he maintains to this day. Before Big Iron, he'd do all of his analysis by hand. Giant stacks of yellow foolscap paper pads, all with meticulously plotted equations. Dad did multivariate regression by hand. God save him. So when the university said we're buying one of those newfangled electronic computer thingies, Dad pestered everyone up to the dean, according to departmental peers, to make sure his department got time on the schedule. Dad taught himself to program. Dad taught himself to load programs by punch card. Dad badgered the departmental chairman into buying their own punch card type machine, and then apparently hoarded it in his office until it was stolen one night by his peers. This began a game of equipment hot potato, as the punch writer made the rounds of people's offices, desk, file cabinets and the like until the chairman put their foot down and had it chained to a desk in the main office. Apparently, akin to the military, there is only one thief, everyone else is just trying to get the punch writer back. For his part in the above, Dad had to help the entire department learn to program and to use the punch card writer. Thus where the hijinks begin. As time has gone on, I have come to realize that nerds are nerds no matter the discipline. Mild sociopathy included. Dad's peers took to programming like fish to water, and mainframe access to hyenas to fresh meat. They learnt that the early sessions could be preempted from other terminal sessions. They learnt that the early email structures could be tampered with. In one case, one of Dad's peers had built a very specific punch card that, when inserted anywhere into a stack of punch cards, would instruct the mainframe to diagonally stripe print messages over any output. The thought of what got printed, I leave up to you. Keep in mind that for all their learned, scholarly gravitas, many professors are still schoolkids at heart and swear like sailors, just in N languages, usually. In addition, said peer was the departmental jester. For all of you in IT, consider the terror this could engender when the class clown also programs at a reasonably skilled level. Having met the man in question, I would never have guessed it, for he was a very nice man, I thought, and Dad, for his part, mentioned but a few situations involving data pranks that were ascribed to him, if not conclusively proven. The one I recall the most clearly was Dad mentioning that, late in one summer, he once had to stay up for almost an entire weekend straight, guarding the punch card reader, to make sure the sixth copy of a governmentally commissioned report did not go out to a minister with commentary striped across it discussing current governmental policy, the mental attributes of the current council, and the size and capability of the minister's unmentionables. For someone, with a special card, had been working their magic the entire previous week. To the point of enlisting peers to distract Dad so some quick sleight of hand would render several hours of output rather, well, George Carlin-esque. Deadlines being deadlines, Dad apparently complained loudly enough to the chairman to ensure that the chairman spoke with said jester. Later, the chairman told Dad that he had secured through threats and promises that a certain someone would not be in the office over the weekend, so he had all that time to do said work. Dad said he then asked the chairman had taken a peer's office keys from him for said weekend. The chairman replied with words to the effect of, "That's insulting, I wouldn't do that. It'll be fine." So Dad camped out the entire weekend. On Monday, Dad arrived at the office. Tired, grumpy, but joyful, for the printing had been done. His peer was in the office that morning, and Dad related how he triumphantly finished his work, without his peer's commentary either. His peer congratulated him, and then asked which of the 300 level classes he'd be teaching in the fall. Dad, for his part, who had recently ducked out on those courses due to seniority, asked for clarification, to which his peer explained that on the previous Friday, the chairman had come by to plead Dad's case. His peer listened, and explained that he'd never tamper with Dad's output like such, and that he'd be fine with sharing the computer access, but that since he'd lost out to Dad on course assignments for that fall, he was planning on rewriting his assigned 300 level coursework over the weekend, and they'd share the terminal access. A discussion ensued, and having plead his case, and noted that Dad still had the previous year's coursework available, extracted a promise from the chairman to redo the course assignments, and furthermore, that in return, he'd ensure that he never set foot into the office the entire weekend. So he'd left town for the entire weekend for his lakeside cottage.